This war stops now.
You are tired of the war. I can see on your face.
End the war. Bring freedom to our people.
This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time.
Let's stop! Listen to me! Stop!
No. No more tricks. No more lies.
Welcome to the Stop and Listen podcast. I am your host, Jamie.
We're gonna have a good time. Always.
So, RFK is in the news. I really like RFK. So he's been denied Secret Service for the third time. RFK, this is courtesy of the Daily Wire. RFK Jr. lashed out at President Joe Biden's administration for denying him access to Secret Service protection while on the campaign trail ahead of the 2024 presidential election. Now, if any of you aren't big on history, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his father, senior, was assassinated when he was running for president. His uncle, John, was assassinated while he was president. And his cousin, John F. Kennedy Jr., happened to have a plane crash and die when he was about to run for Senate, a seat that was ultimately filled by Hillary Clinton. And RFK is not being given protection. Would make me pretty leery. I mean, I assume he has the wherewithal to provide his own protection. Remember that Joe Biden was going to be the great healer. You know, he was going to be the uniter in chief that he claimed. Homeland Security gave no explanation for rejecting our application. Law says all major candidates get protection. I'm polling 22% and 40% among young voters, beating Biden and Trump. My opinion may be biased, but that seems pretty major to me. Absolutely. We need more voices. We need to hear more opinions. Now, as I said, I appreciate RFK Jr. I would like to see him in an ideal world be part of a Trump administration, Attorney General, maybe a Surgeon General. I've been reading he's got a book. It says Fauci, Big Pharma. I think Bill Gates is in there. And it's a lengthy book, and I'm getting pretty close to the end. Now, I knew RFK was a little kooky before I started, and I was kind of hoping for some good conspiracy theory stuff, some outlandish things that were going to be stated. And I've been disappointed that everything he has said is actually very practical, very logical, and terrifying. Now, he's been going on, he'll do almost any podcast, and he went on Charlie Kirk podcast, and Charlie Kirk is a ardent Trump supporter and conservative. So how is this going to go? And he said a few things worth noting.
The Colorado Supreme Court recently said Donald Trump's not allowed on the ballot because he allegedly, they say he engaged in insurrection or rebellion. What is your reaction?
It's one of the craziest decisions that I've seen, and it's terrible. I mean, it's just terrible that they, people, half the country wants to vote for Donald Trump, somewhere around half. And, if another country did that, like Pakistan or Iran
we would sanction them.
Well, yeah, we'd say that's not really a democracy. But, we're doing it now. We're trying to, I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump's. That's why I'm running against him. But I don't want to beat him in a fixed, fight.
Is Robert Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump, they have to know each other fairly well. They've had to have run in very similar circles throughout their lives. So are they friends? I bet they are. And because they have a lot more in common than you would, than the TV would like to admit. Aside from running against him, he sounds like a Trump supporter, doesn't he?
Yeah.
What would you say are the chief objections to both? If you were to say, since you're running against both, these are my objections to Trump, these are my objections to Biden.
I mean, I think my biggest objection Biden is, I just don't think he is capable of governing the country. He can't do an unscripted conversation or encounter with a voter. Even the
So he's not
scripted
saying
ones
it's
are falling
ideological.
apart. So I don't think, I don't even know if there's a sort of a coherent, governing
Now,
philosophy that
I
he
mean, of
has
course,
that I would
he's
object
against the
to. I just
vaccine
think that
mandate.
there's
Maybe that's really what's behind.
that
Perhaps that's really what's behind the run. That really pushed him into it, and that would make sense. I mean, as I said about the book that I'm listening to, what they have done with vaccinations around the world, according to this man, Dr. Fauci, Bill Gates. Listen to the book or read it. I mean, it's a 28-hour listen, and I mean, there's a lot there. And the narrator could be better. You may not even hear this. Maybe I'll cut that part out.
there's a competency question at this point, and that he needs to answer, which means he has to debate, which I don't think that they're capable of doing.
No.
With President Trump, my objection to him is that I don't, he had a chance, and the big things that I object to, the biggest thing that I object to is the lockdowns. Oh, he locked down 3.3 million businesses in this country with no due process, with no just compensation, with no scientific citation, with none of the
I mean, that is a fantastic critique of Trump, knocking it out of the park. But then his problem with Biden is that he's a dead man walking.
The things that you have to do to involve, to involve the public in momentous decisions like that, violated the Constitution. And then he and that shifted $4 trillion north in wealth. We created a billionaire a day during that 500-day, this new oligarchy of billionaires. That was a zero-sum wealth. It was just a shift in wealth upward from the beleaguered American middle class. And then there was a number of other decisions he made during that crisis moment of American history when you really want you want a president who can stand up to his bureaucracy and to ask questions and to go into the weeds and to have, to stick by his.
No, that's not that's not a bad criticism of Trump, but who has? At least there's talk of it. I mean, baby steps, I suppose. I mean, I agree with him, but
his instincts. He knew that hydroxychloroquine was going to work, and yet he got rolled by his bureaucrats again, and they ended up denying access to the American.
Yeah, so I think
public.
that's an interesting point. By the way, I would.
Okay, there's something to that. Him not saying Fauci's name, there's something to that. Because he directly says Fauci did that. He paints the picture in his book.
They ended the last vote they took, and this is not on the recordings, but I know this story, that there was 8 people who, my uncle had a vote, the final vote, and they voted 8-6 for invasion, and my uncle said the 6s have it. So all of his guys who were, the senior officials, the senior CIA people were all telling him, you've got to go in. And he was able to say to them, let me see the aerial photographs. And then he asked them questions. He said, are those Cuban gun crews, or are they Russian?
I've said this before. Bobby Kennedy's had a hell of a life. I mean, his father was assassinated. I think he was shipped off to boarding school shortly thereafter. I got into heroin really bad. Had to go to rehab in his, at 20s, I think. Maybe, I don't know. I think it was probably was later. But either way, successful trial lawyer, apparently went after Monsanto and stuff like that. It's a great thing. And then kind of seemed to get kooky and kind of went away, and now he's back. Like we need this voice. Like we cannot waste his voice. We need him right now, not as president of the United States. He will outline that a little more clearly why soon in this. But Bobby Kennedy, where have you been?
He was able to go deep into the issue and then stand up to his bureaucracy. And I think that that was something that President Trump was not able to do. He had very, very good instincts, as you say.
That's not true. Because Iran shot down one of our drones. This is off memory. I don't have any sources. But Iran shot down a drone, and I believe that was when Bolton was around, and I think that's what led to him not being around. They were going to bomb a military base, and the jets were on the way, and Trump said, how many people are going to die? How many people are going to die? Iranian soldiers. He said, how many Iranian soldiers are going to die? And it was like 9, something like that. And President Trump said, don't do it. So I could criticize Trump, and he did a few things right, but that should be his legacy as the president of the United States, that those 9 men live on. That should be celebrated. He's wrong.
As someone who says you still are a Democrat, what would you say you
Well, I'm an independent.
Okay,
now.
fair enough, but you were running in the Democrat primary, right? So what would you agree with Biden on?
I don't know. I don't know.
See,
I think he.
This is yet another example of people asking the Ron DeSantis, Gavin Newsom debate. Hannity asked him hard questions. Like that was the best job Hannity's done at anything in his life. That was great. And that last debate, the Republican debate that Megyn Kelly was the main moderator of, that was good. Because when you let people really say something, make them justify their stances if they can. And like that was just quite a moment of silence from RFKJ.
What I agreed with, the thing that made me a Democrat, Charlie, is the traditional Democratic platform, which I would sort of check all the boxes. The Democrats were traditionally anti-war. They were they were skeptical of
he's not going to let that pass.
The military-industrial complex of the corporate control of our democracy. They were pro-environment. They were pro-women's rights. And bodily autonomy. They were skeptical of the pharmaceutical industry and the other big corporations. So that's those are the boxes that I would check, and I don't know how much of that.
Okay. So,
I don't even know what President Biden.
Skeptical of big corporations. Now keep that in mind, because
I would shut down the border and do it immediately, even if it took deploying the military. At this point, and what we need is, we need asylum court judges. There's a backlog on the asylum courts of 7 years. There's something like 4,000 cases, and I have to check this figure, but it's something like 4,000 cases for every asylum court judge. There's 3 million cases out there, and we need asylum court judges on the border before people get in to adjudicate their cases before once they get in. If they have an asylum claim, you have to give them a hearing. So we need to be able to adjudicate those at the border. We can't be letting. We're letting the Mexican drug cartels dictate and control our immigration policy, and there's been 7 million who've come across in the last 3 years. As you point, and there's the legal immigration during that period was 3.1 million.
When you share a continent,
so there's
you have a
double
border.
The cartels have brought in double what legal immigration. The people who were.
Sorry, Bobby. When you have a border that is not being guarded at all, and you're on the same continent as the Mexican drug cartels, that essentially is in your country. They may not be in your neighborhood yet, but that's what this policy is doing. So if we're going to have an open border with Mexico, we cannot allow the cartels to control things. And if life was easier to be, if you could be safe in Mexico and live life, a lot of Mexicans would go back there because they like being Mexicans. I mean, Mexico seems like it'd be a fine place to live if it was safe, away from the cartels. We can create freedom for millions and millions of people by doing this. I mean, what is the population of Mexico? So I'm going to pause. Population of Mexico. Maybe we're not going to pause. 126 million people controlled by drug cartels. We could set 126 million people free. That would also be such an easy vacation for Americans. I mean, it is already to some extent, but if it's more than just the resort towns that are, nice and safe, it's just jaunt down to Mexico, Now, Mexico is smart. If you're not a Mexican citizen, you can't own land there. That should be a policy we should adopt. Our country allows 126 million people to basically be controlled by the drug cartels. We allow that. You can't say that we don't. And we are funding Ukraine. It's a war against Russia. And Israel's war against Hamas. And we're paying Kenya to fight in Haiti to try to stabilize that country so it can have a government again. Holy shit. All right, let's get back to it.
Just speaking as someone who would run more in circles I'm not in, do you think the Democrat Party is using immigration as a political strategy?
I can't believe it's a good political strategy for them. My impression, I try not to speculate about what motivates people.
But I hate to interrupt. It makes me wonder, who would want this? It's 20,000 people a day sometimes.
It's inexplicable.
Okay, so what would you get? What would be your best guess?
Because I don't even know how the decisions are made. I don't know if it's Mayorkas who is making the call or, what I saw.
Hello, 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 hello.
So I've been recording for 35 minutes without my microphone on. Awesome. Hello. I should have realized that. I don't know if I should start it over or not.
When I was at the border, so I'm just telling you what I have seen. What I saw was a level of pettiness that was almost beyond description. And I'll tell you, my concrete example of that. President Trump built, and I was against building the wall.
Are you still?
No. Now I think it was absolutely important. You don't need to build a wall 2,200 miles from San Diego to Brownsville, Texas. The populated areas, you definitely need a physical barrier, and it's got to be.
No bullshit. If it's open, it's open. And the easy thing for them to say is that, well, you don't have a wall with Canada, and the people in Canada are of lighter complexion, and that's why you are wanting a big wall up there. But it's either got to be a full wall or we secure the government and make sure everything's hunky-dory over there. That's the options. So I don't know what to call him. I call him RFK. I'll call him RFKJ. I'll call him Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'll call him Bobby. I don't know what to call him. But anyway, when he was taking jabs at Trump about COVID, all legitimate. But he did not say Fauci's name. Now, do you know how much he would go up percentage points if people actually heard him say the things that are in his book? If he would actually say that out loud to people, he would probably get a few votes away from Trump. So I don't know what he's doing.
So you mentioned your uncle JFK, who I really admire, by the way, and I think he was killed by the intel agencies. And in a different conversation, I'd love to chat with you about that. But your other uncle, Ted Kennedy, was big on immigration, as you well know, and transformed the legal immigration system and took green cards over 1 million a year. And I know this is a wonky question, but is there a set number of legal immigrants you think our country should take? Are we taking too many right now?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I'd love to hear the arguments either way about.
Well, like, for example,
tell me this: how many do you think?
Well, I'm not running for president. I think we should have a moratorium, right? So,
like a complete moratorium.
See,
well, of course, yeah.
he did the same thing that Nikki Haley did when she screwed up the South Carolina question. Didn't have no answer. What do you think? I mean, he has zero idea. Zero. Because he has no idea how many they let in now. So he can't then adjust his expectations. Which he could just say that. Like, I was like, dude, I don't know the raw numbers. But probably less than would be the smoothest way to answer this question in this on this stage. And he probably kind of like, I mean, less than, and then because we got to deal with what we got. But he kind of flubbed that one.
Oh, and then what about would that harm businesses that like need workers?
It could harm multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar tech companies. Yeah.
So he just said he liked the old Democrat that was hostile towards big business.
But
you don't think anybody else would be harmed by it?
Potentially, but I think that allowing yourself to digest the big meal of mass immigration that we've been having the last decade is probably not just important, it's critical. But again, my position is just, a talk show host. I'm not running for president. But I mean, let me ask you, like, do you look at Minnesota that's now basically become mini Mogadishu? Like, does that bother you that we've allowed hundreds of thousands of Somalians who don't assimilate into our country into Minnesota?
Well, I would not say that the racial issue is.
Well, it's not racial. It's more cultural, right? So I don't care if they're black or whatever. They're Islamists.
So it's a religious issue for you.
It's cultural, right? I mean, do you think Ilhan Omar has assimilated to the country well?
Well, I don't know Ilhan Omar. I know that there's a lot of Muslims in this country that have assimilated and that are proud to be American who are not radicalized. So I don't know.
Well, like, for example, does it bother you in Minneapolis the call to prayer is broadcast 5 times a day and that they've changed the flag of Minnesota to be basically identical to that of the Somali flag, literally the flag of Minnesota?
Yeah, I don't, there's other things that bother me about this terribly. And what bothers me is that there's 110,000 people on the sidewalks in New York who don't have papers and who...
See, that's why he's important and should be involved in some capacity, but he's not broad big picture. He's got some zones of expertise, and that's where he should apply himself for the betterment of this country.
Do you think that we should rethink the legal immigration system? Chain migration, I have a relative here. Are there certain countries we should prioritize over others?
I think we should have an immigration system that serves America's national interests.
What does that look like?
We should have
it would be an immigration system that...
What we need in this country is to probably shut down immigration, all immigration for 5 years, and deal with what our current situation is. Account for everybody, and start deporting or assimilation, one or the other. But we need kind of a break for 5, probably 10 years. As Charlie pointed out, this has been going on, and the lack of assimilation is getting worse and worse.
Says, what kind of jobs do we need in this country?
So business should dictate our immigration system?
Business.
But didn't you spend your whole career suing these businesses?
But not for immigration policies.
But like if the Koch brothers said they need 100,000 people, should we listen to them?
Well, I would love to hear their argument. If they're saying they need 100,000 here or they have to ship their...
But why don't they hire Americans? And like pay them better wages.
Yeah,
isn't that a Democrat position?
Yeah, and by the way,
So one of the things as president, obviously, you get to appoint Supreme Court justices. And the Supreme Court is more important than ever as a check and balance. Which current or recent Supreme Court justice is closest to your ideas or what you would appoint?
I couldn't answer that. I would say, I'm going to appoint judges who reflect my values.
But what are those values? Because President Trump has a list. To his credit, here are the 65 people. I mean, would it be more like Kagan or more like Clarence Thomas?
It would. I don't know. I wouldn't answer that.
But respectfully,
He won't
you're running
answer
for
it.
president. The voters, that's a huge issue for voters,
But
especially when it comes to Second Amendment rights, abortion.
So, like, 100%, like, in no way, shape, or form could I ever vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is so wrong on some of the most important issues. But damn, he's got a voice we need to hear. It's so weird. It's like, I don't know. I definitely have a fascination with him.
But who's your favorite Supreme Court justice ever?
ever,
Just one that you would say that you think did a good job.
Earl Warren.
Okay. So the Warren court that got rid of prayer in public schools.
Well, the Warren court that gave, I'm not going to, like, this is why I don't want to pick a particular
But you have to,
justice.
because voters vote on the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, but I'm telling you what I would look
That's
for
fair enough. I'm just
in a justice, but I'm not going to endorse every decision. So if I can see, the trick here, which
It's
is,
not a trick.
I name a judge and you're going to pick a decision that, I would not endorse. That's why I'm telling you that, I can tell you what I want.
Well, and I mean, but, like, and that's a point, but like, he's still like, Charlie's right, and RFK has a point, but yeah, you gotta, like, exactly. And whoever you would pick, this doesn't mean they would endorse every choice thereafter anyway. But you gotta paint a picture. You gotta give a general idea.
As someone who has a great record on medical freedom, and I know that. I'm not BSing, meaning I believe that. I do have to ask, when do you think life begins?
What do you mean by life?
Human life. Life worthy of the protection of the government. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When should the government come and protect life?
Well, my position is that we need.
See, what Charlie should say here is, say, if a woman who's pregnant is killed and that person is charged with 2 counts of murder, do you agree with that? And then go from there. So it's a person, if somebody kills it, other than the mother. So the mother that would be a backwards way of getting more of an honest answer. By trickery.
Trust the women to make that choice because I don't trust government to make any choice as well, particularly when it comes to bodily autonomy. Now, I would say later on in the pregnancy, that government has a much larger claim spelled communities that are as poor or more poor in Appalachian communities that are as poor or more poor than urban communities. And I think we need to rebuild all of them.
So
He just said, though, he doesn't trust government to make decisions about bodily autonomy. Okay. But he does to rebuild societies. I mean, either the government is the answer or it's not. I mean, there's certain things, but community development has never been in their wheelhouse. So
I'm running to win. I'm not running to hurt. President Biden or President Trump, I'm running, and I'm not,
He just showed Trump respect there because, the media loves to throw shade and say, former President Trump, which, I mean, isn't necessarily, it's not universal. I mean, there's one president, and it's not like you're not honorary president once your term's over. So, before former president is is accurate description, but I do like that. Like he paid Trump that respect. That's nice.
Running in ways that are vituperative or vitriolic against them. I don't get, I don't engage in personal attacks or any of those against either of those candidates. I respect both of them in the office that they held, but I don't think either of them did a great job as president, and I think I'll be a better president than them.
So and by the way, I deeply appreciate your commitment to free speech and coming on here to talk to, as you know, a vocal Trump supporter. What's your pitch to a Trump supporter watching this or listening to this right now?
I think it's the pitch that I made before that, I think President Trump had it right on the medical freedom issues. I think he had it right on the war issues.
I think Bobby Kennedy would probably I think Trump would govern the same as Bobby Kennedy would if the left kissed his ass. Now, the left's not kissing Kennedy's ass, but he's sworn his blood.
If you want a president who's going to actually address the problems at the CIA and who's going to reform that agency, which President Trump never even attempted to do, that agency now is just has been captured by the military contractors and military industrial complex.
The war machine.
And the war machine has functioned, which my uncle recognized. My uncle was going to completely reorganize the CIA in his second term.
Huh.
My father, when he...
That's okay. So I've been sitting on this for a while. And I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to do a kind of like a reaction video to that speech that he's referring to. So as I mentioned, the book that he talked about this video or this speech by Bill Gates at the TED Talk. It came out 13 years ago.
Look, first we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that.
So abortions, and why would vaccines help with population control? Well, RFKJ outlines it in his book.
That by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3. The second factor is the services we use. This encompasses everything. The food we eat, clothing, TV, heating. These are very good things. Getting rid of poverty means providing these services to almost everyone on the planet. And
not everyone can live. They want the lower class of the United States to be kind of like worldwide. That's a nice thought. But we consume too much. So what you say is we got to drastically reduce the population in order to do that. Well, I guess he did say, he said reduce by 15%. Now I found this other video. This one was from 5 years ago. Let's listen to this.
In this year's annual letter, Melinda and I take the toughest questions we get asked and give our answers. One that's come up for a long time is, as we make the world healthier, is the population going to get so big that feeding everybody and maintaining the environment is going to be impossible?
You guys got, wow. That just sends a chill up my spine.
Here we can see a chart that looks at the total world population over the last several hundred years. And at first glance, this is a bit scary. We go from less than 1 billion in 1800, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.4 billion where we are today is happening even faster. So Melinda and I wondered whether providing new medicines and keeping children...
Now, what he could do is buy patents and give and give technology to bring these communities up. That's what he could do.
Alive, would that create more of a population problem? What we found out is that as health improves, families choose to have less children. And this effect is very, very dramatic.
Holy shit. This is like, right? Subscribe. I want to hear what else Bill Gates has to say in the future. Now this is from 13 years ago as well.
This is a very important question to get right, because it was absolutely key for me. When our foundation first started up, it was focused on reproductive health. That was the main thing we did, because I thought, population growth in poor countries is the biggest problem they face. You've got to help mothers who want to limit family size have the tools and education to do that. And I thought that's the only thing that really counts. Well, then I came across articles that showed that the key thing you can do to reduce population growth is actually improve health. And that sounds paradoxical. You think, okay, better health means more kids, not less kids. Well, in fact, what parents are doing is they're trying to have 2 kids survive to adulthood to take care of them. And so the more disease burden there is, the more kids they have to have that high probability. So there's a perfect correlation that as you improve health, within a half generation, the population growth rate goes down. In fact, Hans Rosling here at this conference, in 2 of my favorite speeches, actually showed that unbelievable correlation that population growth has gone down. Today, where is there high population growth? It's in the places with the...
My goodness. He seems like an evil man. I bet you he don't even know how to code. I think there's a different reason why he is who he is. Also, from the book, Bobby says that I think his grandfather was like a right-hand man to John D. Rockefeller, who had the same ideas on population. We got some interesting things going on in this world. I hope you enjoyed this. Wow, this is might be a long video. See how much I cut down. But thank you very much for watching.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man, you just go on there and point and click. It's real easy, man. Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man.
That was loud. So, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, do all the things. Find me on Twitter at James Jost at Stop and Listen Pod. I'm more active on that. I haven't been active too lately. There hasn't been a lot of juicy stuff for me to make sarcastic comments about. But thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you soon.